The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of the speakers and panelists, and do not necessarily reflect the position of the ETHOS Institute for Public Christianity and its founding institutions and organizations.
Is Jesus God?
Migrant workers and human rights from a Christian perspective.
Marriage and family.
ISIS presents a much bigger threat.
How do we integrate the Bible with our scientific understanding?
Are you able to actually describe and articulate clearly your own sense of purpose in life?
So my topic today is the Trinity and other faiths, which is a quite difficult topic. So some common ideas in the scholarship, that talk about the Trinity and comparative study between Trinity and other faiths is something like this. First, some theologians think that the Father works through the Word and the Spirit in many religions. So God the Father, as the initiator of all things, worked through the Word and the Spirit in many religions. And the Word contains the idea of wisdom, and the Spirit is dynamism. So in other words, many religions also contain the seeds of wisdom and also a certain degree of effectiveness and in transmitting God's grace to human being. So beside this idea, some theologians also think that the Trinity is reflected also in the unity of diverse religions. So the idea of the Trinity as unity in diversity is also quite reflected in the unity of many different deity or many different religious systems or beliefs. Hence, interreligious dialogues on the Trinity is possible. So we can see, based on these ideas, for instance, that some people compare the Trinity and the Trimurti in Hinduism. So they compare the Trinity with the ideas of the gods of Brahma, which represents creation, Vishnu, preservation, and Shiva, which is destruction. Some other theologians, including Christian theologians, also compare favorably, for instance, the Trinity and the ultimate reality of Brahman. The Trinity also can be understood also through the triunity of Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. Not only that, some scholars also compare the Trinity and the Trikaya in Buddhism. The so-called Trikaya is the three bodies of the Buddha, which is Dharmakaya, the formless body of Dharma, ultimate reality; Nirmanakaya, the spatio-temporal bodies of the Buddhas themselves, for instance, like Gautama Buddha; and then Sambhogakaya, the bliss bodies or the bodhisattvas. So these three bodies are actually comprise a kind of unity in Buddhism. And the bliss bodies are the bodhisattvas, for instance, like what Chinese community need know as Quan Shi Yin, Avalokitesvara, and other kind of bodhisattvas like Amida Buddha. So I do not say that these comparisons are wrong, or I want to challenge this comparison, no. But I think in this kind of study, we need to take heed, I think, a caveat from Aquinas. Aquinas said that the Trinity cannot be known apart from Scripture. Saying otherwise undermines the mystery of faith. So the Trinity cannot be based on, according to Aquinas, natural knowledge of God, cannot be based on general revelation. He said something like that. So Aquinas said that the reason can only show the consistency of the doctrine, but it cannot prove it. It cannot demonstrate Trinity, and it cannot discover Trinity by its own. So such mystery, according to Aquinas, cannot be based on such a feeble foundation like reason. So as a result, it seems that, based on what Aquinas said, it seems that the Trinity is incommunicable to those outside the conventional boundaries of the Church. And not only that, one cannot use general revelation to explain the Trinity. So in many Protestant theology, the body of Protestant theological works, especially from the Reformed tradition, people always think that religions or other faiths belong to the realm of general revelation. There are some truths in religion. There are some good teachings in other religions, but they belong to the general revelation as being contrasted with spatial revelations about the Bible or the gospel. Now, we cannot use general revelation to explain the Trinity. So comparing the Trinity with the deities or ultimate realities and other faiths is futile, it seems. We cannot do so. Now, the challenge right now, is there a way to talk about the Trinity and other faiths without doing what I said, 3 C's? Collapsing the boundaries between general and special revelations, compromising the Trinity's doctrinal and soteriological uniqueness. Yeah. So we cannot say, for instance, that the Trinity is just one expression. One expression is not unique, it's one expression among many. But we should not also caricature other religions. So we cannot misrepresent the teachings of other religions. So I think there's a way to do that. There's a way to avoid extremes, the way to avoid one extreme of collapsing or the distinctions between general and spatial revelation on one extreme. And another extreme is refusing all kinds of dialogues. So there must be a certain kind of middle way. And I think there are some clues that are offered by some theologians. Yeah. First, from Augustine. So Augustine differentiates between the Trinitarian imprint, or in Latin vestigium, and image or imago. So according to Augustine, even in those places where we cannot know the Trinity precisely or exactly, we can find the imprints, the footprints, or the traces, vestigia Trinitatis. So according to Augustine, all the revelations of God, including what we presently say as the general revelation, contain these footprints or imprints of the Trinity. And one of the most prominent imprint, one of the most obvious imprint, is the idea of unity in diversity. Now, this idea was developed further by a neo-Calvinist Dutch theologian, which is increasingly popular right now in the West, Herman Bavinck, from the Netherlands. So Bavinck, being influenced by German idealism, think that we should think about the Trinity and the work of the Trinity as a kind of organism. So he got this idea of organic unity. So organic system, according to Bavinck, contains 3 basic attributes, which is diverse elements. There are different kind of elements, interconnections, and one goal or one telos. And based on this, according to Herman Bavinck, the logos organically connects general and spatial revelations, including, as Bavinck says, different religions and Christianity also. So scripture provides substances and the telos, the special revelations, which is necessary after the fall, while general revelation provides concept for communications. So we can find first some parallel concepts, and then we can compare it. And concepts here is basic units of meanings or intelligibility. So we can say that we can understand different concepts in other religions. And based on those parallel concepts, we want to compare the Trinity and different religions by also emphasizing similarity and difference between them. Now I want to start from Bavinck's method, and I will explain it further. I will explain it further how this method can be useful in the dialogues between Christian faith and other faiths. Now, I want to make Chinese religion, Chinese philosophical religion, especially Neo-Confucianism, as a kind of case study how to conduct dialogue between Trinity, between the Trinitarian faith and other faiths. Now, according to Hans Küng, there are 3 religious river systems. Now, this is quite a simplification, actually, but still quite hopeful for us to understand some different kind of religions. According to Hans Küng, there are 3 kinds of religions, 3 kinds of river system or categories of religions: Semitic religions, including Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, which is prophetic religions. So they base their claims on revelation. And the one central figures among them are prophets. Indian mystic religions, And according to Hans Küng, there's also the third kind of religion, which is quite hard to categorize actually, which is Sinitic or sapiential beliefs. Now, for Sinitic beliefs or Chinese religious system, the most important person, the most important figure is not prophet, is not mystic, but wise man or sages. Now, sapiential belief systems are very interesting because they are more humanistic. They are non-theistic. Many Chinese philosophical systems, many Chinese philosophical religions are non-theistic. Yeah, they are secular and they are non-eschatological. So this is very unique. So Chinese religious system, many of Chinese religious systems do not have eschatology, and they are more they emphasize more on this worldly. Now, by sapiential belief system here, I do not mean popular religions, Chinese popular religions, yeah, but the more basic philosophical systems that somehow underlie these popular religions. Now, I want to pick here Neo-Confucianism. So Neo-Confucianism is the most sophisticated, prominent branch of Sinitic religious system. Why it is so? I will explain it later. So it's developed in Song and Ming dynasties. So it's called in Chinese Song Ming Li Xue. Yeah. So it's developed in Song dynasty and also in Ming dynasty, which and very interestingly, this Neo-Confucianism is a confluence of Buddhist, Taoist, and early Confucian elements. So Neo-Confucianism rise as a kind of, you can say, opposition or criticism of Buddhism, but incorporates large elements, vocabulary, and philosophical concepts from Buddhism, from Taoist philosophy, to support early Confucian elements. So it's a very sophisticated philosophical and religious belief. Now, interestingly, after the Yan dynasty, after the Mongol occupation, the texts of Neo-Confucians, especially the text by Zhu Xi, become the standard examination test in Chinese court for 600 years. And you can say that Neo-Confucianism had been a Chinese civil religion from 14th century until 1905, when the civil examination was erased, was eradicated in China. So the effect is so immense, and it also influences Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and other countries in East Asia. So a Harvard professor called Tu Weiming, he says something like this: East Asians, and when he says East Asian, it's including Southeast Asians or Southeast Chinese, may profess themselves to be Buddhists, Muslims, or Christians, but by announcing their religious affiliation, seldom do they cease to be Confucians. So according to Tu Weiming, the Confucian influence in Chinese culture is so deep, so transformative, that many Chinese are actually born Confucians, including those who are raised in different countries. Now, the version of Confucianism which is inherited by us, according to Tu Weiming, is the most important is Neo-Confucianism. Now, there are some interesting parallels between Neo-Confucianism and Christianity. First, they prefer being or life over emptiness and death. So Neo-Confucianism, in reaction against Buddhism, think that emptiness is not primary. The most important thing is being. And life should be prioritized over death. So this is also different from Taoism, which think that there is no preference, no ontological preference between being or over emptiness. Now, another kind of similarity, especially with the most predominant philosophy in Christianity, is metaphysical realism. They think that all things in this world are real, are not illusions, are not Maya. They are not illusory. So we can take this reality seriously. And another kind of parallels is the primacy of love or benevolence. In Chinese, it's called Ren. So other regarding ethics. And the most prominent concept is benevolence or love. And more this worldly. Yeah, this is especially true with Protestantism. So Confucians, Neo-Confucians always ask people to think about society, how to transform society, how to transform our culture. Yeah. Not only that, their conception about sage, yeah, or in Chinese, 圣人, yeah, the one who will have the most cultivated morality of all human beings, are worldly saints. Yeah. Those saints are not hermits, but those who are active in society, those who contribute actively to the society. Now, this is some parallels, although not quite thorough. Now, if we want to learn about Neo-Confucianism, we need to learn about its cosmology, which is very interesting. Yeah. According to Neo-Confucian cosmology, reality is a kind of organic, rich system. So reality is diverse, is very organic, it's interconnected. It's like a kind of organism. Now, diversity is rooted in the most basic duality. So interestingly, diversity, so many plural events and plurality of things in this world is rooted in the most basic duality, which is in Neo-Confucianism, Neo-Confucian cosmology is actually yin and yang, yin-yang. Yeah. Behind so many plural events in this world. The telos of reality. What is the telos of reality? So we use Baffing schema right now. Reality is ergenic, but we want to know what's the goal of reality. So the diversity of elements, they are driven by a goal, which is the endless births of creatures. Yeah. So, or in Chinese idiom, 生生不息. Yeah. It's always, reality is always fertile. It's always generative. It's pro-life. You can say something like this, life-affirming. Now, in Neo-Confucianism, the problem of the one and the many, like in Greek philosophy, is actually the problem of the unity in duality, ilia. So how can dual aspects be united as one? So the one and the many is actually the problem of the unity in duality. So this is the cosmogony. So this is a very ancient image, which actually originated from Taoism, but later adopted by Neo-Confucian orthodoxy. So the great ultimate, this is a very famous text by Zhou Dunyi, the great ultimate Tai Chi. So we know about Tai Chi Quan, yeah, the Tai Chi dance or Tai Chi. So Tai Chi is the ultimate reality. Yeah. Through movement generates yang, and through tranquility generates yin, yeah, yin yang. Movement and tranquility alternate, yi dong yi yin, and become the root of each other, giving rise to the distinction of yin and yang. So basically, according to this cosmogony, which is actually the history of the cosmos, ultimate reality contains the duality between yin and yang. Yeah. Yin and yang. And it's actually about logic and not about the temporal sequence. So movement and tranquility, they exist, they coexist in the great ultimate, and then they express themselves as a kind of movement and tranquility in nature. Now, according to one proponent of this movement, which is Cheng Yi, yeah, he said something like this: the Li of heaven, the Li is, you can translate Li as logos or Tao. Yeah. The Li of heaven, earth, and the myriad of things is that nothing exists in isolation. Everything certainly has its complement. You can see that this wordy English translation is actually very short in original classical Chinese. 天地万物之理，无独必有对. Yeah. So everything must have its complement. Things lead to their opposites. 物极必反. Yeah. If there's life, then there will be death. If there's beginning, then there will be end. So that's why in Chinese vocabulary, yeah, the word Tai, which is too much, is something not quite good. Yeah. Tai mei, too pretty, not that good. Yeah. Parents will be worried. Yeah. Tai hao, too kind. It's not that good too. You can be easily cheated. Yeah. I was told that the only word that the only good things about Tai in Chinese language is Tai Tai. yeah, which is means a wife. So Chinese always try to avoid this polarity, because what things lead to their opposites. 物极必反. Now, according to this another proponent of Neo-Confucianism, which is Zhang Zai, the one is the unifying spirit, and the two is the source of change. Why we need two? Why we need the polarity between yin and yang? Because two will generate changes. However, this two is controlled by one. 一故神，两故化. One is called the spirit or shen, according to Zhang Zai. If the two are not established, then the one becomes invisible. So the effect of the one is the two, the opposites. I will skip this. Now, after everything comes together, then human being, human being rise. Now, human being is the embodiment. Now, human being is the embodiment of the mind of the universe. Now, this is said by Zhu Xi, the most prominent, you can say the most prominent figure of Neo-Confucianism. Zhu Xi, as many Chinese in Singapore, is a Fukienese. Yeah. So Zhu Xi something like this: the mind of heaven and earth is to generate things. Benevolence is this mind of heaven and earth, and this also becomes the mind of humanity. So the mind of heaven and earth, the logic of heaven and earth, is to produce things, And as a result of this evolution, as a result of this production, human being was created. And human being has the mind of heaven and earth. Yeah. Chinese said, 人是万物之灵. Human being is the spirit of this universe. So that's why the so-called love or benevolence means that we want to embrace everything that is life. Yeah. Now, this becomes the ethics of Neo-Confucian. Benevolent person unites himself with all things completely, according to Cheng Hao. And Fan Zhongyan, which is a kind of very famous minister in Song Dynasty, he say this word, which becomes a very favorite word for many Confucian and encapsulate Confucian ethics: to worry before all people are worried, and to be happy after all people are happy. 先天下之忧而忧，后天下之乐而乐. So if you accept the logic of the universe, then you want to affirm life everywhere. You want to unite yourself not just with society, but with the universe. However, there are some tensions in this system. First, the impersonality of ultimate reality and the personality of humanity. There's a tension of that. Ultimate reality, according to Neo-Confucian, are impersonal, but humanity is personal. And secondly, Confucians, on the one hand, affirm that there must be duality in everything. But on the other hand, some forms of duality cannot be harmonized so easily. Confucian always said we need to accept death calmly. But the problem is, death seems to be contradictory with life. Okay. So there must be some incongruous stimulus response mechanism. So according to the Confucian, you need to respond. You need to respond by uniting yourself with all that there is. But the problem is, all that there is also contains duality, contains polarity between life and death, between order and chaos. How can we respond? So we need to seek the one behind the many, the harmony. This is what's the emphasis of ancient Chinese philosophy. But how can we do that? Now, I do not say that Neo-Confucians do not have answer to this question. Yeah, but I want to give you some Christian answer, a Christian answer to this as a part of dialogue. Now, what is the Christian response? So this is something which is parallel with Neo-Confucian. Myriads of things, so many things come from the creative benevolence of ultimate reality. However, ultimate reality is personal. Now, that's the difference. Yeah. Confucian thinks that ultimate reality becomes personal through human being. But we said that before the creation of human being, ultimate reality is personal. And ultimate reality consists of the duality in unity. So what we need to emphasize in dialogue with them is that there is a kind of duality, not just Trinity, between the lover and the beloved. And the unity of which is love, which is the spirit. So the lover and beloved duality entails the endless duality of giving and receiving. Now, this is emphasized especially in the theology of Bonaventura and Aquinas. So they said that the locus or the focus of the inner life of the Trinity is in the duality of giving and receiving between the Father and the Son. The link itself, the giving and receiving link itself, is the Spirit. Now, all kinds of generation, including creation, are the overflows of the primal Trinitarian giving and receiving. So there is a kind of relation between giving and receiving in the Trinity, and this overflows into creation. So creator and creation duality reflects the Father and Son relationship. Now, this is very interesting that this is not just emphasized in the medievals and also in some of the church fathers, but also stressed out by Calvin. Calvin said that the reality, the logic of reality in this world is a kind of reflection of the relationship between the Father and the Son. God and the creation is actually a reflection of the relationship between the Father and the Son. So not only that, but creation itself, human being, animal, and everything, creation itself is an organic web of this duality. So creation itself contains an organic web of giving and receiving and stimulus and response. This is actually quite parallel, quite similar with Neo-Confucianism. Neo-Confucian emphasized nature as an organic system of duality, giving and receiving, stimulus and response. And this reflects the image of the Trinity itself. So the Trinity is not reflected only in unity in diversity, but a kind of organic connection between giving and receiving. But there is another kind of duality, which is the distressing enmities between order and chaos, goodness and evil. So this, I take this also from Neo-Confucianism. So according to the Neo-Confucians, duality can be harmonized, but some dualities seems cannot be harmonized. The duality that cannot be harmonized, they call it enmity, or in Chinese, 相仇, 相敌, enmities. So there are goodness and evil, life and death, order and chaos. It is different from the duality between male and female, for instance. Yeah, between firmness and meekness, for instance. That's the duality that can be harmonized. But there is another kind of duality that cannot be so easily harmonized. And we can see that at best, goodness and evil are in stalemate, and at worst, evil has the upper hand. Sometimes in life, we realize about this. Now, overcoming this duality is a universal religious concern. And I think this is a Neo-Confucianism misgiving of Buddhism. Neo-Confucian attack Buddhism as a kind of selfish belief because they believe in afterlife, they believe in reincarnation, they believe in a kind of eschatology. But the problem is this is a universal religious concern, not just Buddhism, that this kind of enmities need to be addressed, need to be harmonized. Now, the inimical duality for Christianity, the inimical duality between life and death, order and chaos, is the context, is the opportunity to reenact, to live out the harmonious duality of giving and receiving. So giving and receiving entails self-emptying. When I give, I empty myself. After receiving, I want to give back by emptying myself. So the idea of kenosis or self-emptying and giving and receiving is already there in the Godhead. Now, suffering and death is the opportunity to give back. waiting in the midst of suffering, is both giving back as an expression of our gratitude to God. We want to give back by waiting and also being receptive. We anticipate the flowing of God's blessing. So inimical duality and harmonious duality can be harmonized. Death or adversity is the context to empty yourself, to give yourself. So benevolent love, according to Christianity, is a union between the giver, Father, via the receiver, Son, in the giving-receiving link of the Spirit. Now humanity is invited to participate, to unite himself with God and adopt receiver stand, which is the Son's own stance. Why? By being responsive and by being receptive. So we are participating in this give and receive. So, and this attitude is expanded to all beings. We try to give to God through our faithfulness, to our ministry to to animals, through all beings in this world. And we also receive God's blessing through them. Now, concluding thoughts, for both the Trinitarian faith and Neo-Confucianism, reality is organic and life-affirming. Meaning of life can be found in the integrity of the world as an organic system. So this is quite universal in religion. When your worldview is conflicting, when you cannot harmonize some tensions in your worldview, then you are urged to find some solution through faith, through your religious beliefs or through your philosophy. Yet, according to Christianity, a life-affirming organic reality requires personal ultimate reality and the overcoming of the inimical duality between life and death, between fullness and emptiness. So, according to Christianity, if it's put in the language of Neo-Confucianism, ultimate reality, which we call God, contains the circular polarity of giving and receiving. Plurality of things or events in this world is rooted in this duality and aim to reflect the relationship between giving and receiving. So the tension of the two kinds of duality, suffering and then our need to be obedient to God, can be harmonized through the power of the Spirit. So through this, we can see that interreligious dialogues on the Trinity need to first, according to Bavinck's method, according to Bavinck's organic method, we need to look out for parallel concepts and basic differences, not just similarities, but also differences, and consider how the Trinity can provide some alternative clues or answer that explain those differences. So we can see that Christians can also accept suffering and death with calmness. One of the most stringent accusations against Christians launched by Neo-Confucianism is that Christians are typically afraid of death. Are typically just like Buddhists. Their ethics is much more self-centered in that they are longing for a better life in heaven. But actually, death and suffering has its place in Christian life. We know that death should be obliterated later. But death right now is a kind of opportunity for us to give ourselves to God and to wait to receive blessings from God. So this kind of duality is still intact. So in this kind of dialogue, we aim more at introducing our beliefs through comparison. We can learn from their concepts. We can use their concepts. But since the Trinity is based on special revelation, then we need also to introduce the uniqueness of our belief. Okay, that's my presentation so far. Thank you.